out there? How are y'all doing today? That is fantastic. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to the Double Diesel Sports Podcast, the podcast where we talk everything National Football League in season, off season. It does not matter because it is football. I am your host, Double Diesel, and welcome to this Christmas week recap of the 2023 National Football League season. Before we dive into it, as always, I'd like to ask, if you have not done so already, to please like, subscribe, and share the video if you have not done so. And if you know anybody that enjoys this kind of content, share this with them. Tell them to share it to somebody else. Helps us get more eyeballs on the channel. Help us out. Boost our chances of being seen in the algorithm. So if you have not done so and you'd like to, that would mean the absolute world to me. Also, if you want to support the channel financially, go support me on Patreon at patreon.com/Double Diesel Sports. That would mean the absolute world to me as well. The link to that is in the description down below. But let's get on with the show. So, ladies and gentlemen, Christmas week is officially in the books. Week 16 is officially in the books. I hope you all had a very Merry Christmas. I surely did. I hope you all did as well. And it wouldn't be Christmas if we didn't get some all-day Christmas football, which is what we got yesterday at the time of recording this. And there are a couple games that I want to talk about from yesterday's slate. I don't want to spend too much time on anything else from this week because there are a couple things preview-wise going into Week 17 that I want to talk about in this episode. But first of all, from the Christmas Day slate of games, I want to first talk about what was probably easily the most shocking game from not just Christmas Day, but the week as a whole. The Las Vegas Raiders walking in to Arrowhead Stadium and beating Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs in front of a national televised audience. They even beat them in front of children as this game was simulcast on Nickelodeon. So even kids were subjected to this game. Poor things. But I want to first talk about, let's give some love, let's give our flowers to the Vegas Raiders for a second. And before I do that, I want to take y'all on a little trip. Let's Doc Brown this shit and hop into the Time Machine DeLorean and go back to the year 2021. And the Raiders were in a weird situation in the middle of 2021 where, you know, they had this whole controversy surrounding John Gruden and the emails and the content in those emails that were so grotesque that it resulted in him getting canned almost immediately. And then you get into other personal situations as far as the team goes, from Henry Ruggs to Damon Arnett. And this franchise looked completely lost. Everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong for this organization. And then all of a sudden, as the saying goes, it's been like this in football for years, and it will continue being like this, not just in football, but in all sports. Winning cures all. Well, Rich Bisaccia, special teams coordinator, was promoted to interim head coach, and he did such a damn good job with that team, to the point where a team that was, when he took over, was not a very good team, that had dealt with all this drama, all this heartbreak, all this tragedy, and coached this team to a playoff berth. It was such a well-done coaching job that myself and everyone in the football world was convinced that he was going to take over as the Raiders head coach full-time. Mark Davis, on the other hand, saw things differently. Bisaccia was let go. He goes on to take the special teams coordinator job for the Green Bay Packers, where he has been ever since. And Mark Davis decided to go back to the Belichickian tree and hire Josh McDaniels. Fast forward to the present day, and you look at this season, almost the same exact situations has seemed to unfold. Josh McDaniels gets fired mid-season, second time in his coaching career where he's been fired as a head coach in the middle of his second season. The Raiders were horrible under his watch. Horrible. He was a tyrant. He seemed to create a culture of misery and despair and walking on eggshells. It was a horrible situation, both on the field and off the field, with Josh McDaniels running the show. He ends up getting fired. And as a promotion, Antonio Pierce gets promoted as the interim head coach for the remainder of the season. And Mark Davis made it clear, or at least I viewed it as such, that he felt he made this mistake once before. And if Pierce does a good enough job, he's not going to make that same mistake again. Well, here we are. One day removed from Christmas, and the Raiders have won 4 of their 7 games of Pierce as the interim head coach. They are 4-3 with Pierce as the head coach, including yesterday's massive win over the Kansas City Chiefs. And a game that, if you watch that game, it didn't even feel close. The Raiders basically bullied the Kansas City Chiefs all game long. That Raiders defense was incredible yesterday. They were getting pressure constantly. They made Mahomes uncomfortable. They scored back-to-back huge defensive touchdowns in almost the same exact fashion as they did the week previous against the Chargers. A defensive scoop and score and a Jack Jones pick 6. It's almost identical. And they were able to keep the Kansas City offense completely in check. They took Travis Kelce completely out of the game. They neutralized Patrick Mahomes from being able to do Patrick Mahomes things. And they were able to pull this off despite the fact that their offense, and this is the craziest thing from this game, is that the Raiders put up all these points. They scored 17 points in the third quarter. In the third quarter, they scored 17 points. All without completing a single pass on the offensive side of the ball. They did not complete a single pass the entire third quarter. And yet, they scored 17 points. You think that, and you're like, how the fuck does that happen? And then you realize, 2 defensive scores. But still, though, that is insane that a fact that an NFL team, without completing a single offensive pass, not even a pass behind the line of scrimmage, and were still able to do enough to win a national televised game against a team that is destined for a playoff spot, that has been one of the elites of the elite for the past, how many years now? 4 years? That just is a testament to not just how well this defense played, but also how well this team has been and what this team has been like with Antonio Pierce. They have played hard for him. This team is willing to run through a wall for him. Even if everything's not going their way, they're still going to play their asses off and find a way to win. It really is an incredible sight to see, and I really am happy for him. And I really do feel like Mark Davis is not going to make the same mistake twice. I do feel like Antonio Pierce has done enough to at least warrant a second go-around and a full offseason and a full season as the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. I do firmly believe that, but I will say they have to get some adjustments on the offensive side of the ball. They have to get a better offensive coordinator, obviously get a real quarterback in, because I don't think Aiden O'Connell's the answer. I think it's been very clear he's not the answer. And yeah, that's really all there is to say about the Raiders. But now let's get depressed. Now let's get depressed for a second, or happy, depending on how you feel about the Kansas City Chiefs. And I feel like we're beating a dead horse at this point by talking about the state of this team and where they were last year. And all the miscues on the offensive side of the ball and receivers dropping passes and making dumb mental mistakes. All that's been talked about to death. Christmas Day was really the bottom point, I feel like. And even then, I hesitate to say the bottom point because I've seen in this league for many years now, it can go lower than this. When you think your team's at a certain spot and they play a certain way and you're like, man, it can't get any lower than this, trust me, it can somehow find a way to get lower. And I feel like right now, this is their current rock bottom at the moment, though. Because, like I said, this game did not feel competitive in the slightest. The Raiders flat out bullied the Kansas City Chiefs. More so, the Kansas City Chiefs offense got bullied. And that's something that's been really shocking. The defense was fine. That's been the story of the Kansas City Chiefs in 2023 is the defense is great. The defense has been helping the Chiefs, and they have been keeping the Chiefs alive in some of these games. And it's the offense that can't seem to carry their weight. But yet for so many years in the Mahomes and Reed experience, it's been the complete other way around. Where it was the defense was sort of average at best, but it was okay because the offense was going to be a juggernaut and put up points after points after points. This year, it's not like that anymore. And I guess it's not too surprising, but it is disappointing because this is, I mean, the only difference with being Juju Smith-Schuster isn't there, but other than him, this is the same exact core, the same exact supporting cast that they won the Super Bowl with just last year. So this is a situation where, you know, and Shannon Sharp on his podcast brought up a great point. Last year, this team didn't have any expectations because they traded away Tyreek Hill and they weren't really expected to have the same kind of offensive firepower. So when they did, they were still able to play like the Chiefs of old and go on to win a Super Bowl. I think that gave everyone the mindset of, all right, we could just not really make any huge splash plays because we won the Super Bowl with this core. This is a core still good enough to win it all with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback, as long as we have him at quarterback. And that has not been the case. Kadarius Toney, we've talked about his issues to death. Sky Moore has... I've said this a few weeks ago. Sky Moore is officially a bust now. And it feels weird saying that of a second-round pick, but he is. He's a bust. MVS just disappears every 4 games. And then, you know, every 5th game or so, he'll just make a couple catches. And you're like, oh, yeah, he still exists. I mean, you have a decent running game with Isaiah Pacheco. I like Isaiah Pacheco. But when he's not in the game, your running game is basically just non-existent. And that's the problem is outside of those guys, now you're really just like talking about scraps. I mean, you got Justin Watson, maybe, but if he's your second most reliable receiving threat, that's a problem because your most consistent receiving threat at the moment is Rashee Rice. He's it, but even he is not like this super explosive athlete that's going to one day be a true number 1 wide receiver. At least I still don't view him that way. But he's their most consistent weapon right now. And even Travis Kelce, I've said this for weeks now, Travis Kelce does not look like the Travis Kelce that we've been accustomed to seeing. He's had a case of the drops this year. Hell, in just this game, he was given 2 back-to-back screen passes thrown to him. One of them he just flat out dropped, and the second one he nearly dropped. So he's not been the elite best tight end in football, undisputed best tight end in football that we've been so used to seeing over the last few years. So everything's just out of whack with this offense. And now it's gotten to the point where they are 9-6, I believe. Yep, 9-6. And they're in a situation now where They split both series against the Broncos and the Raiders. The Raiders and Broncos play each other in week 18. If the Chiefs, for whatever reason, lose their last two games, all of a sudden, that matchup between the Raiders and the Broncos is going to be a matchup to win the AFC West. Which is, with Patrick Mahomes in this division, was unfathomable. But it's now a realistic possibility. Because you never know with this league, man. You never fully know. And with how the Chiefs have been playing, and the Broncos have been sort of up and down. They suffered a brutal loss on Christmas Eve. But now the Raiders have gotten a bit of momentum these past couple wins, which were huge wins. Now all of a sudden the division is not this surefire thing anymore. Which, coming into the season, I did not think was even a remote possibility. So, yeah, man. I'm concerned with the Kansas City Chiefs. I've been concerned. Now I'm all the way about to hit the panic button as far as this team is concerned. But let's talk about one more game. One more game. There we go. And that was a game on Christmas night. A game that I saw in the stat right before I sat down to record this. A game that pulled in 27.5 million viewers. 27.5 million viewers on Christmas night. A night where people are spending time with their families, when they are just getting together, having fun on Christmas night, and they still pulled in 27.5 million viewers. The matchup that pulled in that large of an audience, the Baltimore Ravens taking the flight to Santa Clara to take on the San Francisco 49ers, the matchup of two 11-3 teams, the two best teams in football, a potential Super Bowl preview. And this game did not go the way I expected it to. I expected this because this was one of these games where the way most teams are built is either their offense is really good or their defense is really good. And it's one or the other, and the other side is like average maybe gets up to decently good on a great day. But this is a matchup of two teams that had high-powered, high-scoring offenses and the two best defenses in football, respectively. So this was a matter of I had no clue how this game was going to play out, what this game was going to look like, and I was so excited to watch it. So I ended up being really surprised that this game, outside of the first quarter, or really outside just the first half in general, was really one-sided. The entire second half of this game was really one-sided, and it was a Baltimore Raven statement win of all kinds of statement wins you can possibly dream up. This was the biggest statement win you could possibly get by beating the San Francisco 49ers in convincing fashion in Levi Stadium. The Ravens flat out bullied the San Francisco 49ers in the second half of this game. And I want to talk about the Niners first, because this was a very un-49er game. This was a very un-49er-like game. And also a very un-Brock Purdy-like game. And I will get into more of the MVP discussion later in this episode, but I feel like it's safe to say that Brock Purdy, who coming into this week was the MVP frontrunner, basically torpedoed his chances of winning the award on Christmas night. 4 interceptions. Not all of them were his fault, but they were all really, really bad in the sense of 2 of them were just horrendous fluke plays, And then the other two were just, okay, what the hell were you thinking? Especially the fourth and final one, where he just threw the ball directly to Patrick Queen. That one was brutal to watch. And the 49er offense, really outside of Christian McCaffrey when he got a chance to touch the ball, really couldn't do much of anything in the second half of that game against a stout Baltimore Raven defense. And the Niner defense did a valiant effort. They did all they could, but they could only contain Lamar Jackson for so long. And hey, I wouldn't be too upset about that because not many people can contain Lamar Jackson for that long, but they tried and they just weren't able to get it done. They were able to stage a little bit of a comeback late in the game, but by that time, Brock Purdy had been pulled, mainly because of an injury, but they had a chance to go back in the game, and Kyle Shanahan told them not to. So they tried to stage this comeback with Sam Darnold, and they couldn't get it done. They tried to make it interesting late, but ultimately couldn't get it done. Ravens won this game by 2 scores. But I want to mainly talk about the Baltimore Ravens. This was the game that established themselves as the best team in football. And we kind of got that sense coming into this game of whoever wins this game is for sure the best team in the NFL. And we can all confidently say it's the Ravens, especially with the way they won it. Lamar Jackson proved to everybody why he should be probably the NFL MVP. That defense I already talked about was insane. It harpens back to the days of Ray Lewis and Ed Reed and Terrell Suggs. And oh my God, like it was insane what this defense was able to do against that Niner offense that has so many ways to beat you. And they neutralized them completely. They completely neutralized them. And the Ravens offense was able to move up and down the field and score points at will against an excellent 49er defense. This was a masterclass by the Baltimore Ravens. They could not have played this game any more perfectly, especially that second half. They couldn't play that second half any more perfectly if they tried. It was incredible to watch. And they are for sure the kings of the NFL right now, as far as they are by far the best team in the NFL. They are the ones now with the target on their back. They're the ones that if you're going to try and make it to the Super Bowl or try to win a Super Bowl, you are going to have to beat them for it. And I feel like there's really nothing else to say because everything there is to say about these teams we already kind of knew. And the Ravens, we already knew how great of a team they were. But this really just put them over the top of, no, they are by far the elite right now. Going into week 17, they are the elite. They are the top dog. They're the ones that everyone's eyeing and looking up at to try and knock them down, to try and win a Lombardi. And they have to be the favorites right now. I can't imagine a world why they wouldn't be. But, yeah, outside of that, there's really nothing else to say about this game other than it proved how great the Baltimore Ravens are. And I'm ultimately not so scared about the 49ers. I do think this was just a fluke game for Brock Purdy. I do think if these two teams met again, the 49ers are going to give a little more of a fight in the second half. I don't think it would be the same exact way as far as Brock Purdy laying a complete dud. But I do think this did torpedo his MVP chances a little bit. And, well, speaking about the NFL MVP award, let's just go straight into that right now. And who the hell wants to win this award? That's been the main question all year. Is nobody knows who the league MVP should be. Not who they want it to be, who it should be. Because every single week it differs. One week it's Tyreek Hill. The next it's Dak Prescott. The next is Jalen Hurts. The next it's Christian McCaffrey. The next it's Brock Purdy. The next it's Lamar. It's been all over the place. The favorite has flip-flopped from week to week. And there's even, I can't remember the last time where we were this deep into the season with going into week 17, the second to last week of the regular season, and there's nobody in the league that I or anybody else can confidently say is the NFL MVP. But Vegas will try and get some kind of answer. So let's talk about the top 3 candidates as of right now and how realistic those chances are for these players to win this award. Currently right now, at plus 500, which is shocking right now, is Brock Purdy, who, like I said earlier, came into this week as the not runaway favorite, but he came in as the leading favorite to win this award. And after last night with looking really bad, throwing 4 interceptions, I will admit I was sort of on the bandwagon as far as, I mean, not the bandwagon, but I was a part of the large group of people on Twitter that were saying Brock Purdy should not be in consideration for the NFL MVP award. Yes, his stats are incredible, but here's the thing with the MVP in my eyes. Is it's become, and I get it, it's become a stats-based award. You know, it's based on who has the best stats or who has the most impressive stats at the end of the year. That's basically what the MVP has become. But I feel like people always forget the V in the MVP. Most valuable player. The player that if you took them out of the game and you took them off the team, this team would look drastically different. I don't know if Brock Purdy is such an important piece for the 49er offense that if you take him out, they would look completely different and they would not look like the juggernaut that they are. Now, you can make the argument that that is a case to an extent because they tried it with Jimmy Garoppolo for so many years, couldn't work. They tried it with Trey Lance, and the few games he did see action in, couldn't really make it work all that much. But then Brock Purdy comes in and he's efficient. He's able to move the offense relatively well. So you could say he's the perfect guy for the system. Does that make him an MVP, though? Because you see earlier in the year where Deebo Samuel got hurt and they got into a bit of a slump, they lost 3 straight games, and Purdy did not look particularly good in those 3 games. And then Deebo came back, and all of a sudden, he has all his pieces again, and the offense is back to being unstoppable. So I was kind of on board with the idea of, hey, he probably isn't the most deserving because I don't think he's this game changer of a quarterback. But that's just me. Some people think differently. And if you do think he deserves the award and you think he is essential for the 49ers offensive success for reasons I listed earlier, I can't really blame you for that. But I didn't think he was MVP worthy. In fact, the person on his team that I felt like is the most MVP worthy happens to be the guy that's number 2 on this list, and that's Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey is the closest thing to the perfect offensive weapon that you can possibly imagine outside of maybe Tyreek Hill. Because the thing with Christian McCaffrey is he's not just a running back. He's a wide receiver. And he's also, like, he could be in the NFL as a full-time slot receiver and easily be the best slot receiver in football. But because of his dynamism as a runner and his breakaway ability as a runner and his breakaway ability as a receiver out of the backfield and lining him up everywhere on the field and still be a threat to score from whatever position you line him up at. That is a valuable weapon to have. When you have a guy that is a guaranteed touchdown in a game like that, you don't understand how important and rare that is to have a guy on your team that you know is going to at least get into the end zone once a game. He's going to score at least once. You don't know when, but he's going to score at least once. And there have been multiple times where he's scored multiple times in multiple different ways, both on the air, through the ground. Hell, there'll be times where they'll just they'll just allow him to throw a pass, and he'll score through a passing touchdown. And it's just like, he is like, and the fact that Kyle Shanahan, he's in a Kyle Shanahan system run by Shanahan himself, it makes him the most unstoppable offensive piece in the NFL, rivaled only by Tyreek Hill. And if anybody on this team is valuable to the success of the 49er offense, it's Christian McCaffrey. Because I don't know, because everyone's talking about Brock Purdy and would this offense be the same without Brock Purdy at quarterback? How would this offense look if they didn't make that trade at the deadline last year with the Carolina Panthers to make Christian McCaffrey a San Francisco 49er? What would this offense look like if CMC was not in the red and gold? I don't think they're as explosive as a team if they don't have Christian McCaffrey in there, man. I really don't. So, if you ask me, he should absolutely be in consideration for MVP, more so than Brock Purdy. But the current MVP favorite after last night's game, and this is not surprising at all, and after this game, I myself said to the group of buddies I was watching the game with that Lamar Jackson should absolutely be the favorite for league MVP. And some people would probably go against that because I just talked about earlier how the MVP basically has become a stats-based award. And, well, Lamar's stats on paper is not all that great. He only has 19 touchdown passes on the year. He has only 24 touchdowns total when you include his rushing touchdowns. So his numbers are not going to jump out at you. But when you watch the game, you understand how special and how important he is to the Ravens' success. And the best way to describe Lamar Jackson, and I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I firmly believe this. Lamar Jackson is what everybody thinks Jalen Hurts is. Everybody looks at Jalen Hurts and they say he's this incredible athlete who is incredible with his legs, great arm talent, and he elevates the talent around him. And even if you didn't have the talent, he will single-handedly will the team to victory. But we've seen over this past month and a half or so, where Jalen Hurts, where if guys get hurt or those elite pieces around Jalen Hurts don't perform like those elite pieces, and they have an off day or whatever, or an off couple games, Jalen Hurts is not this guy that's going to elevate everybody and drag the team to a victory. He's just not that good. He's good. He's not that good, though. Lamar Jackson, though, can do that. He's been doing that. I mean, you're talking about like 2019, which is the best season, one of the best seasons I've ever seen a quarterback have, where Lamar Jackson just went super sane. His only real reliable target from a receiving standpoint was Mark Andrews. Other than that, throughout most of his career, his best receiving threat out from a pure wide receiver standpoint was Hollywood Brown, who was as inconsistent can be. So Lamar, outside of Mark Andrews, has never had a true threat in the passing game. And he was, even then in 2019, despite only really having Mark Andrews throw the football to, he still led the league in touchdown passes and led the league in passer rating and completion percentage. And dominated on the ground as well. Like, his legs are horrifying enough to try and defend. Like, he literally is a running back playing quarterback in the sense of he plays the quarterback position at an elite level, but has the skills of an elite running back as well. It is insane to watch this man because there's no way to defend him. There's no way to stop him. He's either going to dot you up down the field, or he's just going to take off from a clean pocket and just juke you out of your shoes. There's no way to defend him. Especially if you're an NFC team, which, by the way, last night makes his career record against NFC opponents 20-1. He is 20-1 in his career against teams from the NFC. That one loss, ironically enough, last year in Week 6 to the New York Giants. Now I think about it, I don't know how I feel knowing the fact that Daniel Jones is the only NFC quarterback to beat Lamar Jackson. I don't know how I feel about that, but that's besides the point. The point is, Lamar Jackson has been able to play as an elite quarterback and win a bunch of games for the Baltimore Ravens for years now, despite not really having the best receiving talent around him really before this year. And even this year is not like this incredible core. I mean, you have Odell in there, but there'll be games where he just kind of disappears a bit. You have Zay Flowers, who I really like, but he's still developing. He's still evolving. And then Mark Andrews has been hurt for most of the year. So even then, like, it's an upgrade, but not a super significant upgrade. And yet he still has been able to put the team on his back most of the time and pull out these incredible wins. I mean, we talk about value to a team. If any other quarterback was the quarterback of the Baltimore Ravens, they would not be in this position as the best team in the NFL. They would not even remotely, not even close. If any other quarterback other than Lamar Jackson was the quarterback of the Ravens, outside of Patrick Mahomes, outside of Josh Allen or Aaron Rodgers, even those guys to an extent, like even Mahomes this year, he's shown like he still needs some kind of talent around him to help him sometimes. Lamar, on the other hand, is used to it. He's used to not having the best weapons. And yet he's still able to win. He's a winner. This team is not a winning team if it's not for Lamar Jackson. There's my case for him to win NFL MVP. Incredible football player. And he should absolutely be, at this point, the favorite to win MVP. Yes, his stats are not the best, but you got to talk about what this team would look like if it weren't for Lamar Jackson. They would not be 12-3. I'm telling you that damn much. But now, let's end this episode by talking about something that we have been in for a couple weeks now, but I haven't really had the chance to talk about. And something that I'm always really excited about because it's always really fun to try and follow along with. And that is, ladies and gentlemen, it's playoff scenarios time, baby. So let's read these off, baby. How about that? Let's look into these playoff scenarios going into Week 17 of the NFL season. Starting off with some teams from the AFC. Here are the scenarios heading into Week 17 as far as seeding goes, as far as actual punching your ticket to the dance goes. Here we go. First of all, we're just going to start with the aforementioned Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens, ladies and gentlemen, have a chance to clinch the AFC North this week. Their opponent being the 11-4 Miami Dolphins. This is going to be a fun game. The Dolphins coming off a huge win at home against the Dallas Cowboys. This is going to be a really, really fun game, and I'm really excited to watch it. But there's something on the line for the Ravens because they have a chance to win the division if one of two things happens. Either A, they beat the Dolphins straight up. Beat the Dolphins, the AFC North is yours. Or if the Cleveland Browns, who play the New York Jets this week, if they lose that game for whatever reason, then there you go. Win, lose, or draw against Miami, it doesn't matter. The division is yours. As I hit my laptop there. But, yeah, simple, straight up. But it's not just that. You see, a win doesn't just give you the division. That's not the only thing it gives you. Because what a win also secures is home field advantage throughout the playoffs in the American Football Conference. A spot that has been battled out for weeks now. A spot that has constantly changed hands, flip-flopped. Multiple teams over the past few weeks have been in consideration and given a chance to be in contention for the number one seed. Well, guess what? The Ravens this week have a chance to end it now and forever. A win over Miami gives them home field advantage. Easy, straight up. That's Baltimore's situation. And another situation is a game that's happening in Foxborough, Massachusetts, because that's where the Buffalo Bills will be heading. Ladies and gentlemen, the Buffalo Bills, they have a chance to clinch a playoff berth this week. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, a team that was seemingly dead in the water in the middle of the season has climbed their way back after firing Ken Dorsey. They've rattled off a bunch of wins, and now they have a chance to get back into the playoffs. But if they're going to do it this week, they're going to need a lot of help. I'm not going to read off the situations where the Bills end in a tie because, let's be honest, most of those situations don't happen unless it's very weird. So here's what's going to happen. The Bills need to win against New England this week, which shouldn't be that difficult. And Pittsburgh and Cincinnati need to lose. Or Bills win, Steelers and Jaguars lose, and the Bills are in. Or Bills win, Steelers, Texans, and Colts all lose, and the Bills are in. Or Bills win, Cincy and Jacksonville lose. Or Bills win with the Bengals, Texans, and Colts all losing. So yeah, there's a bunch of things to keep track of there. Probably not going to happen this week because that's a lot of scenarios that need to play out perfectly. But anything's possible in the NFL, baby. That's what makes it so fun. But let's move on to other AFC teams, to the Cleveland Browns, the aforementioned Cleveland Browns, that if they lose to the Jets, then all of a sudden that gives the Baltimore Ravens the AFC North title, and there goes the division just like that. But the Browns have scenarios of their own. If the Browns beat the Jets, then, ladies and gentlemen, the Cleveland Browns are going to be playing January football just like that. But it would also be the case if the Steelers lose. Steelers lose, then the Browns would be in. Or if the Bills lose, Browns are in. Or if Jacksonville loses, the Browns are in. Or if Houston and Indianapolis both lose, then the Browns are in. So the Browns are in a phenomenal situation to clinch a playoff berth, to clinch their ticket to the dance this weekend. So this is a huge weekend for the Cleveland Browns. So this is basically a week where a playoff berth is all but gift wrapped and sealed for them. But we will see how it plays out. And now let's talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars. A team that has been on a bit of a slump these past few weeks, have lost some ugly games, have not really looked like the team that at one point was a serious contender for home field advantage. But they have a scenario themselves. They can not only clinch a playoff berth this week, but they can also clinch the AFC South title this week if they beat the Carolina Panthers, which should be relatively easy, and Indianapolis and Houston both lose. So they need to beat Carolina and have the Texans and Colts lose their respective games. And just like that, the division is theirs. And now let's move on to the Kansas City Chiefs. Rough week for them, rough few weeks for them, but they can rectify the wrong because they are playing the Cincinnati Bengals this week. It's not an easy game, but the Bengals came off a humiliating loss themselves against the Pittsburgh Steelers, so this absolutely is a winnable game for them. And if they win, they're in. Simple as that. They could clinch a playoff berth and win the AFC West title all this week if they just simply beat the Cincinnati Bengals. But if they don't win, they can still win the division if Vegas and Denver both lose their respective games. That's the situation. That's what's going on. And that, oh no, wait, I almost forgot. One more from the AFC. There's one more scenario from the AFC, and that is the Miami Dolphins. The aforementioned opponent of the Baltimore Ravens. They, ladies and gentlemen, if they win against Baltimore, not only do they make the playoffs, but they win the whole AFC East. If the Dolphins, beat the Ravens, or if the Bills lose to the Patriots, then the Miami Dolphins will become AFC East champions for the first time since 2008. That is what is on the line this weekend for the Miami Dolphins. But now, we're going to wrap this up and wrap this episode up by reading off the NFC scenarios. There's not as many as the AFC ones, but they are still important as ever. Starting with the Los Angeles Rams, a team that is looking dangerous right now. They are red hot going into January. They have a great situation to not only make the playoffs, but make a run. And here are their scenarios for this week. They can only clinch a playoff berth this week. As we all know, the division is no longer up for grabs. San Francisco has already claimed the division, but the Rams can still make the postseason this week with a win over the New York Giants, plus a Seahawks loss, or a win and Green Bay and Minnesota ends in a tie. That's probably the least likely scenario, but the Packers and Vikings have ended in ties before, so it is technically possible. But their best chance is Seattle losing and the Rams picking up the win over the New York Giants. That is their best chance to get into the postseason officially. Now let's talk about the Philadelphia Eagles. Those goddamn Philadelphia Eagles that I cannot get a good read on. They have a chance to win the division this week. They have a really good chance to win the division this week. All that needs to happen is beat the Arizona Cardinals, and Dallas has to lose. That is how they win the division this week. Win against Arizona and hope that Dallas loses this week. And just like that, the division is theirs. The division is all there for the Philadelphia Eagles. And now let's talk about the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers, they're looking to rebound after a brutal loss to the Baltimore Ravens on Christmas night. They will have scenarios this week, and it's a chance to clinch home field advantage throughout the NFC playoffs. And that is if the 49ers win against the Commanders and Detroit and Philly both lose. If that happens, when both Detroit and Philadelphia lose, the conference, as far as home field advantage is concerned, is theirs. And now, let's talk about a team that we kind of mentioned earlier in the NFC playoff scenarios, and that is the Seattle Seahawks. We were talking about how the Rams have a chance to make the playoffs this week if they win and the Seahawks lose. The Seahawks are playing against the Pittsburgh Steelers, but they have scenarios of their own because it's a little bit of a tougher one, but it is possible. The Seahawks can claim a playoff spot this week if they beat the Steelers and Packers-Vikings ends in a tie. Again, not as likely, so it probably won't happen this week. But again, the possibility is still there. And ladies and gentlemen, one more scenario to talk about this week. And no, believe it or not, it does not involve the Dallas Cowboys. It involves the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Yes, you heard me correct. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a chance to win the division this week. They are playing against the New Orleans Saints in Tampa. And the Bucs, it's straight up and simple. Win and you're in. Somebody had to win this division, so might as well try and win it now. Bucs, win, and you're in. Simple as that. Nothing else, nothing else is complicated whatsoever to that situation. So that is all your scenarios. And ladies and gentlemen, that is going to put a wrap on today's episode. Like I said, if you've not done so already, please like, subscribe, and share the video if you've not done so already. And also, if you want to support the channel financially, go support me on Patreon at patreon.com/Double Diesel Sports in the link in the description down below. But with that being said, I'm Double Diesel. Peace.